Thank you for your attention. And as we move forward here, we want to thank all of those who are joining us on social media at this time. Welcome to the Temple of the Living God here in St. Petersburg. We're happy to have you with us. And I'll be sharing an inspirational reading taken from Daily Word, and it's entitled Cheerful Heart. And I quote, "With a cheerful heart, I celebrate, blessing myself and others with love. A cheerful heart is a great asset. When I am in the light-hearted frame of mind, I gladden my own spirits and enhance the spirit of others. Cheerfulness encourages, delights, and energizes. I generate positive, loving thoughts that brighten the experiences of everyone around me. What a gift I am able to give, a gift without cost to me, yet one so valuable and useful to others. Instead of finding fault with others, I remember to seize the opportunity to turn the moment into a blessing. Rather than complaining about trivial things, I let them go, knowing that God is in all circumstances. With a cheerful heart, I can help celebrating, and I bless others as well as myself with love, the most valuable gift I can give." And from Proverbs 15, "A glad heart makes a cheerful countenance. A cheerful heart has a continual feast." And so it is. And let us now listen to Carol and Alex.
People who need people are the luckiest people in the world. We're children needing other children, and yet letting our grown-up pride hide all the need inside, acting more like children than children. Lovers are very special people. They're the luckiest people in the world. With one person, one very special person, a feeling deep in your soul says you were half, now you're whole. No more hunger and thirst, but first be a person who needs people. People who need people are the luckiest people in the world. special people. They're the luckiest people in the world. With one person, one very special person, a feeling deep in your soul says you were half, now you're whole. No more hunger and thirst, but first be a person who needs people. People who need people are the luckiest people in the world.
Good morning, everyone. As always, it is a delight for me to be here with you again today. This month, our theme has been a new wisdom for living. And those of you who may have heard me speak before know that I like to weave into my talks an older wisdom for living, actually an older wisdom for how to be a happier person, taught by Buddha Shakyamuni 2,500 years ago. And I'll get to him in a little later, but I thought it would be interesting to talk about any new wisdoms for happiness and see how they might compare to Buddha's older wisdom for happiness. And there actually has developed in the last few decades a new science. It's an empirical science for happiness. Wow, how would you like to tell someone who asks you, what are you majoring in college? I'm majoring in happiness. So there is a great exponent of this science of happiness, the empirical science of happiness. He is a psychologist and professor at Harvard University, Dan Gilbert. Maybe you have heard him speak, seen some of his TED Talks. And what he tells us, that has been found by psychological experiments over the years, is that our minds have something called a psychological immune system. And this system kicks in when we are into a situation that is not unfolding as we had hoped and expected it would unfold, where we are kind of stuck. And the system kicks in on its own to reshape our minds and make us feel happy about the situation we are in. And as an example, he tells about an experiment that was done at Harvard where students were offered to take a class in taking old-fashioned film was of black and white nature, so they could get black and white photos, and then they would be taught how to use the darkroom to develop those pictures and enlarge them. So the students who signed up were given cameras with rolls of black and white film and told to go out and take pictures of a dozen things around the campus, come on back, which they did, and then they were taken into the darkroom. They developed those pictures. They put thumbnail-sized prints of those pictures on a single sheet called a contact sheet, and then they were told, look at them, and now pick out the two you like the most. Now we're going back in the darkroom, and we're going to show you how you can enlarge your pictures. They did that. So now the students are back in the classroom, and they have these two 8x10 glossies in front of them. And the instructor says, congratulations, you're going to take one of those home and keep it and cherish it for the rest of your lives. But the other one you have to turn in at the end of class today because we need to put it in our archives to show evidence of your work product. Now, says the instructor, I'd like half of you to follow me outside. We're going to another classroom across the hall. The rest of you stay here. I'll be back in a couple minutes. So, half the students go out. The instructor gets them in the other classroom, and he says, look, you are going to have to turn in one of those two pictures at the end of the day, but you will have 4 days to change your mind, and you can swap it out for the picture you have with the picture that you turn in today. How do you like that? Oh, they all like that. Okay. No commitment. What's better than that? So then he goes back into he said, you stay here for a minute. He goes back into the classroom where the other students are, and he said, okay, just so there is no doubt, when class is over, you have to turn in a picture that you decide you don't want to take home and you'll never see it again. I mean, Harvard has got his jet plane ready to whisk it off to their vault at the bottom of a Himalayan mountain right next to a Buddhist temple, of course, and you will never see it. Okay. So 3 days later, all of the students are interviewed. This is one day before the elapse of the swap period. And the students and they were asked the same question, how happy are you with the picture you took home? The students who had the option of exchanging their picture were not that happy. Their mind was going back and forth. Do I really want to keep what I have or should I exchange it? Or now that I've exchanged it, am I as happy now as I would have been if I hadn't exchanged it? On the other hand, the students that had no choice, they were all happy with the picture that they took home. Professor Gilbert said this is a perfect example of the psychological immune system kicking in. When things did not go as expected for the students who could not exchange their picture, that system created what Gilbert calls a synthetic form of happiness. He says it's just as good as natural happiness, which he describes as a happiness we get when we go out and try to get what we think we really want. It may not be an enduring happiness, but we are still happy because we got what we wanted. Synthetic happiness may be something that comes to us without us trying, although there are ways we can get synthetic happiness, and it's just as genuine and perhaps even more enduring than natural happiness. Last year, an undergrad student at the University of Michigan wrote an article, his name was Morgan McCall, on his experiences during a total COVID lockdown on campus. And he said, at first he was unhappy because he had no more options. He couldn't decide where he wanted to go on Friday night with his friends, which is what they typically did on Friday nights. Everyone had to stay home. He couldn't go to his local Starbucks and have his favorite barista whip up some brand new coffee concoction that he had been thinking about since the last time he was there. Because the only coffee he had was the coffee in the kitchen, and that he had to make with the coffee maker in the kitchen. But he said this new normal turned out to be a surprisingly happy one. He didn't have the options, but what happened was he was happier because he had more time to spend with, focus on, and care for his housemates, something he never would have taken the time to do. Another perfect example of how our psychological immune system, according to Professor Gilbert, kicks in and creates a synthetic form of happiness for us, which is truly a genuine happiness. So how does Buddha fit into all of this? So those of you who have not heard me speak before, let me just take a couple minutes to go over some stuff that everybody else knows about, right, very well. And that is, Buddha taught 2,500 years ago through the issuance of 84,000 teachings. He was not a religious man. He didn't view his teachings as being religious. As the centuries went by, religion was engrafted onto a number of his teachings, but you can study them today and apply them and live them in a totally secular way. You don't have to be a Buddhist to practice and benefit from Buddhist teachings, especially with respect to happiness. And he said, all of our unhappiness comes from our minds. It comes from between one ear and the other ear, 100%. And it's because of something we are born with called self-cherishing, which is a sort of subliminal sense that we have that we are made to be just a little bit better than everybody else. And therefore, all things should unfold in a way that impacts us in a way that makes us feel happy because we are a little bit better. So we are deserving of being made happy, or at least being left in a neutral sort of feeling. But, we are not deserving of being disappointed and made unhappy. And what this did, according to Buddha, is it creates in us a distorted vision of what's going on around us. We see people, we think we know exactly what they're like. We see a situation that we think we have a good idea about, or we see an object, that new outfit in the store, or the new laptop that we're thinking of buying, the latest iPhone 12 Pro, or should it actually be? Anyway, back and forth, back and forth. The thing is, our visions are not real. We see it through distorted lenses. And when those distorted views of things meet up with the reality of the thing, there can be a problem called unhappiness. In Buddhist speak, we call these distortions delusions. It doesn't mean we're crazy. It just means, it's just a word that's being used to reflect the fact that we don't really see things the way we think they are. And Buddha said that there are things we can do to dial back or stave off the level of these unhappinesses, called opponents to the thing that's causing us unhappiness, or an antidote. He said every type of unhappiness has its own antidote or opponent. Interestingly, Dan Gilbert came to sort of the same conclusion. He said human beings, based upon psychological studies, have a tendency to practice something he calls miswanting. I love that word, miswanting. We want something that we think is going to make us happy, but we're kind of mistaken. Because when we finally get it, we find out it's not all that it was cracked up to be, or with the passage of time, sometimes not too much time, we're disappointed. We miswanted it. Just exactly what Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. And Professor Gilbert also talks about ways we can readjust our miswanting so that we can get the benefit of our psychological immune system to kick in and create this synthetic form of happiness for us. So Buddha, and to an extent, Professor Gilbert talked about 3 steps on the path to lessening our delusions and becoming happier. The first is just to understand that self-cherishing causes us to have these delusions. When you think about it, yeah, you really do kind of think things should unfold in a way to make you happy. You may not think of yourself as being superior to everybody, some people do, but generally, you probably don't consciously think about it, but it's at play at a subliminal level. Number 2, we have to understand how we can neutralize these types of unhappinesses. And as I mentioned, Buddha taught that every single unhappiness has its own unique opponent or antidote. So for example, the opponent or antidote of impatience, which can lead to anger, impatience is something called patient acceptance. And it goes on and on with respect to different types of unhappinesses. And then finally, Buddha taught, and this is consistent with Professor Gilbert, we need to develop the ability to foresee down the road that something is starting to unfold, which if we don't do anything about, is going to impact us in a very unhappy way. This is something Buddha called mindfulness, and it's something that has been repeated and retaught throughout the ages right up to today. One of the best-known exponents of mindfulness is Eckhart Tolle. If you've never heard of him, just Google YouTube, followed by the word Tolle, or talk to Reverend Karmene, who knows Eckhart Tolle and can tell you some very nice stories about him. So, what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is learning to be aware of everything going on around us in as detached a way as we possibly can. And Eckhart Tolle, for example, in his YouTube videos, will take his audience through a guided meditation, if you will, on an object in a room with the light shining on it. And he describes it with meticulous, objective detail. He's like verbalizing a photograph of what he sees. And the whole idea is if you practice this concept enough and enough and enough, you get to the point where you can trigger it when you start to see a problem situation coming towards you. I call it hitting the pause button on what Buddhists refer to as your monkey mind. Your mind is shooting off thoughts left, right, center. Stop it. Go down calm. Mindfulness calm. Then you can start looking at your toolbox, whether it's one of the tools Dan Gilbert talks about or one of the tools Buddha talked about. 2 weeks ago, I had to go down to Sarasota, so of course I decided to take the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, and as I got close to the bridge, I saw that there was a FDOT sign that said, move to the left lane, right lane is blocked. And I go, okay, this is probably going to be a time when I'll have to apply patient acceptance, the antidote to impatience. And you all know when you've taken that bridge, you get to a point when you can see the span. And it looks like the biggest roller coaster in the world. Well, when I got to that point, what I saw was the tallest, I shouldn't say biggest, but tallest roller coaster. I saw the tallest parking lot in the world. Cars up the left lane, cars up the right lane. Nobody was going anyplace. And I thought, I am really going to have to apply patient acceptance again and again and again, maybe for the next 10, 15 minutes. Well, actually, it was for 40 minutes. Fortunately, the blockage was at the very top, so the rest of the trip down was not a problem. But I was very calm the whole time through. And in fact, at one point, I chuckled to myself. I said, you know, this is a blessing. It gives me the opportunity to practice Buddha's Dharma teaching of patient acceptance as the opponent to impatience. So I'm smiling at myself. I'm trying to make a good thing out of a not such a good thing. Gilbert would say that my psychological immune system was kicking in and creating a synthetic happiness, just as valid of a happiness as might otherwise have happened, but I know it's going to work for me because I've tried this before, but I know that years back, before I started to study Buddhism, I would have been getting all tied up in knots. How dare you cut in front of me right now? Didn't you see that sign 35 minutes ago that your right lane was blocked? Why did you wait until just now to move in front? I mean, no, I don't do that now. What if, another example, you hear that a good friend of yours has said something that really, really upsets you. Obviously, the first thing you want to do is to try to find out what did your friend say, for sure, because you know when you hear that somebody has said something to somebody else who then repeats it to several other people, it oftentimes doesn't come out exactly the way it was said. But let's assume for my example, what you hear your friend said is exactly what your friend said. So, what might we do? What could one of Buddha's tricks be? I shouldn't call it a trick, his tools. One of the great overarching antidotes, opponents of unhappiness is compassion, where you try to wish that someone's suffering will decrease. And there is an exceptionally good and helpful meditation called Exchanging Self for Others, where you try to put yourself in the shoes of the other person. So you try to put yourself in your friend's shoes. Your friend has their own self-cherishing. Your friend has their own delusions caused by their own self-cherishing. And if you know a little bit about your friend, you may be able to think about the fact that they have a health issue or a financial issue, a family issue that could be creating these delusions. And then you might try to focus on how your friend looks at you. That can be kind of a scary thing because all of a sudden you say, you know, I may not be the nicest person at certain times to be looked at by other people. But when you go through this, again, the object is to come out with a sense of compassion for your friend. And you may have to do this meditation several times, but it is super powerful. You are causing your psychological immune system to kick in and create synthetic happiness. You'll end up being just as genuinely content about the situation as if it never happened. But it is possible. Again, meditating in that situation, always meditating on compassion, if you will, is just one of the greatest things you can do to dial back your unhappiness. There is no question in my mind that just knowing you have these tools to live a better life will indeed open so many doors to happiness that you don't have right now. While it's not that difficult to intellectualize and understand how these things work, you've got to practice them. And then you have to practice them more, and even some more after that. But it is worth it. And I absolutely promise you that. So thank you very much for being here today, and may God bless all of you.
Good morning. So today we had several things. We got a gift. Each of them got a gift that was left over, and one of them was a book called What is God? We had a long discussion about that. That was fun. But today, we discovered that God is in everything in our relationships and the people that we love. And we created cards today to someone we love. So you all want to show them or hold them up?
Go.
If you would all stand and take your programs, within the program is the children's blessing. And together, we honor you, we bless you, we behold the presence of God within you. And so it is. Yes, thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Thank you, children. And Andrew. Yes. At this time, the service, we're moving into our Tizen Offertory, and the way that we're doing it now, we will be passing the plate rather than placing them at the back. So if the ushers would please come forward at this time. And let us pray. Let us know that divine love moving through in each and every one of us blesses and multiplies all that we have, all that we give, and all that we receive. And so it is. Amen. And as the plates are being passed, let us enjoy music by Carol and Daniel and Alex. Go out and shine.
Yes. Good advice.
Go out and shine your light. You know the time is right. You gotta go out and shine your light. Go out and shine. Go out and shine. Go out and shine your light. You know the time is right. You gotta go out and shine your light. Go out and shine. Go out and shine. Step out and take a chance. Walk the talk, join the dance. Relax, enjoy the ride, and let kindness be your guide. Go out and shine your light. You know the time is right. You gotta go out and shine your light. Go out and shine. Go out and shine. One voice, one hand, one heart. Wanna change, make a start. We're one big family. What's good for you is good for me. Go out and shine your light. You know the time is right. You gotta go out and shine your light. Go out and shine. Go out and shine. Go out and shine. Go out and shine.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Go out and shine your light.